Yes, over to CASS Naik, the moderator, to take up the session and give us an insight on India at 2030.
Good afternoon. We have with us eminent panelists today, CA Gokuldas Pai, who is on Zoom from Washington, D.C., USA. CA Gokuldas Pai, you are welcome to our show, India at 2030. We have with us CA Ullas Kamath, Chairman, Karnataka State Council, FICCI. Sir, you are also welcome to this show. We have our eminent economic expert, CA DB Mehta. He is the Vice Chairman of Karnataka Credit, as well as he is CA, then he is IRS, then he has qualified law also. Sir, you are also welcome to this show as economic expert. We have already introduced Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt, investment consultant from Dubai. You are also welcome to the show. Before starting the event, this session, India at 2030. See, we have been listening $5 trillion economy by our Prime Minister, and almost all the forums we say $5 trillion economy, that is the immediate target of India. So before starting this, I would like to brief some statistics. Global wealth in US dollars, in 2000 it was 15 trillion, in 2020 it is $155 trillion. China, in 2000 it was only 5 trillion, but in 2020 it is 100 trillion. And global wealth it is 15 trillion in 2000, 2020 it was 155 trillion. China 5 trillion in 2000, now it is 100 trillion. USA it was 2009 million, now it is 10 trillion. China GDP share in agriculture 10%, industry 45%, service 45%. USA agriculture 2%, industry 20%, service 78%. India agriculture GDP share is 18%, industry 24%, and services is the best, that is 58%. Indonesia agriculture 14, industry 47, service 39. Brazil agriculture 5%, that is GDP share, industry 26%, and service 68%. And GDP in US dollar, USA GDP is 23 trillion, then China GDP 17 trillion, Japan GDP 5 trillion, Germany GDP 4 trillion, India GDP is 3.7 trillion. Foreign debt to GDP. This is very interesting. USA is the 128% foreign debt to their GDP, UK 317% foreign debt to GDP, France 255%, and Japan 266%, and Germany 150%, China 85%, India only 20% foreign debt to GDP. We should really applaud. Russia 18% so far. After Ukraine war situation, we need to review it. CA Gokuldas Pai, first I would like to invite you, since you are a global person working as executive in World Bank, and you are also chairman of Washington DC chapter of USA. See, when all the countries are recording negative growth at the present situation, India is recording nearly 7% GDP, positive growth. Jagavella malagiralu avanobba yadda, avane Gautama Buddha. So, why it is so, and whether this trend will continue, your views on this.
Hello.
Now we can hear. Loudly we can hear.
Yeah. Thank you, CASS Naik. So, in 2020 and 2022, between these 3 years, and especially in 2022, was a year of multiple crises. So we were just getting out of COVID, and then just when we thought economy is recovering, we had this Russia-Ukraine war, and which resulted in multiple crises, which we in our organization we call multiple crises. Which all came: inflation, supply chain issues, food crisis was there, energy crisis was there. All countries were under the severe debt pressure. Most of the low-income countries were having debt to GDP 80 to above 100%. Several countries were in deep debt distress, and there was also pressure of recession. For most of the countries, there was inflation was a big problem, and then especially the countries in Europe, the prediction is it will go under recession because there was again severe energy crisis, which was heavily dependent on Russia. And for a lot of countries in Africa, there was also severe food crisis. So if you see the IMF forecast for FY for 2023, the forecast is global GDP is 2.7%. And if you see the forecast for advanced economies, which is all US, France, Germany, and UK, and these advanced economies, it's just 1.1%. Whereas for emerging economies, the forecast is 3.7%. Of which emerging economies includes, if you know, you may know, India, China, South Africa, Brazil, and these countries. So overall average growth for these emerging economies is 3.7%. But the standout, as you said, is India, because the predictions for India for next year and the year after and for sustainable future is between 6.4, and then if you are more optimistic, it's 7%. Whereas for China is facing one of the slowest growth in the decades, because after the global financial crisis in 2008, China had one of the fastest growing economies in the world, which was consistently, it had a growth of 8 to 9%. But for the first time in the history, China is facing one of the slowest growth, and prediction for China is around 4.4% growth is predicted for China. So multiple factors, India, which is facing one of the, and there is a consensus among economists that India will have a very strong growth. Even though traditionally India has grown like 7-8% to its potential, but and considering the current crisis, the consensus is that India will grow at around 6.5% consistently in next couple of years, because India has a very strong domestic market. And if you see the current crisis in last 3 years, India has leveraged that crisis to its advantage, and that is what is making India to stand out when it compared to other countries which has faced a lot of issues, as I said, food crisis, energy crisis, but India used it to its advantage. For example, inflation was one of the problems, but India managed it very well through various means. One is getting cheaper oil from Russia, is to give one example. And also the food crisis, India became one of the suppliers. The Russia-Ukraine war proved to be advantageous because it promoted India's agriculture and rural economy as well. You began the show by saying about the external debt, which is currently at 600 billion for India. But again, India's economy has also been growing, and India's foreign exchange reserves are also good. So there is nothing at this moment, not much to panic about the external debt, because servicing capacity and the growth potential is also good for India. So not long back, $5 trillion economy was something which a lot of people looked with a bit of skeptical angle, but now 5 trillion looks quite realistic. Nobody is talking about 5 trillion now, because that is realistic. In next 2025, 26, we'll be at 5 trillion. But now we had started talking about $10 trillion economy. But that's quite ambitious target to say, because to reach 10 trillion by, I'm talking real GDP by 2030, to reach 10 trillion, India has to grow at 15%, which is quite unrealistic. But somewhere around 7.5 to 8 trillion is realistic by 2030. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pai. I will come back to you soon. Before that, it is a good news that you told that advantage India, correct? Now,
Yeah.
CA Ullas Kamath. For advantage India, lot of measures have been taken by the present government. It be in the form of ease of doing business, and infrastructure investment, and lot of liberalization of statutes and laws and regulations for FDIs. Then lot of impetus given for MSMEs and startups. What is your opinion about Gati Shakti and how it will contribute to the $5 trillion economy target?
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Naik sir. Today's India is different than what we have seen in the past. And the foundation in which we are working now and what we have seen in 80s, 90s, 2000s is totally different. Very, very clear that by 2030, 2032, we should be at 10 trillion, and range is between 2030 to 2032. And the fact that place like Mangalore, we are discussing about trillion economy, itself is a big change. And in 70s, 80s, people didn't even know what the union budget is. Forget about the discussions about it. But today, there is a target, there is an ambitious target, there is an aspirational target, there is a doable target, there is some numbers to it. And we are talking at a global terms. We are not talking in Indian rupees, we are talking about trillion. And that means we are comparable. It's, if you take it as a price parity index, probably we are far better than that. But having said that, today, government is very clear, brand India is the most important aspect going forward. We have 1.4 billion population. Probably by 2030-32, we might be the largest populous country also in the world. So the consumption is here, and the whole world is talking about India. And India has brought in lot of changes, some by talking about it, some without talking about it, the changes have happened. Indian businessmen are seen as a far better, superior citizens than it used to be in 16s, 17s, 80s. That itself is a big change. The taxpayer has been respected much, much better than what it used to be in the past. So to that extent, you will see number of changes which has happened in the last probably 7-8 years after the new government coming in, and a solid leadership. We have shown our might in demonetization. We have shown our might in GST implementation, which most of the people were thinking that it may not be practical because some of the countries in the rest of the world have withdrawn the GST after implementing it without naming them. But we felt that it may not, but it is doing extremely well. And today most of the people know that India collects about 1,40,000 crore every month as a GST. Itself is a huge advantage what India has. What you have seen the brain drains of 70s, 80s, 90s, today you see the reverse brain drain happening from US, from UK to India, because finally the birds will come back to their nest. Now this is where they come with the knowledge, they come with the money, they come with the contacts, and also we have demonstrated the leadership qualities either at a corporate level, at a regulator level, at a government level, at a ministry level, and we do have eminent ministers in most of the states. Though the change what I'm talking about, advantage India, is ease of doing business is the best at this point in time when compared to the past. Red tapeism is going towards the red carpet for the most of the industrialists who want to invest in India. And India is ahead of thinking when compared to other countries. India is as good as what we were, but for the fact that the rest of the world is not doing great, generally we tend to get that advantage. US has its own problem. Europe has its own problem. Russia, Ukraine, we don't know when it will last, how long it will last, and what is the impact of that. And China has its own internal problem, external problem. So sometimes somebody's loss is somebody's gain. Sometimes somebody's expenditure is somebody's income. And during COVID time, we ourselves as citizens felt that we are capable of manufacturing our own vaccine and giving vaccine to our own citizens, amounting to those days 200 crore. Added to that, we were able to supply vaccine to 60 odd countries free of cost. When we got independence, when turnover, our population was 35 crore. Then we had food deficit. After 75 years, population is 135 crore and we are food surplus. And there are so many aspects country has proved that we are far, far better than any other developing country, even though we call ourselves an emerging country. While these are all the things which are upside of 2030, 2040, 2050, we have lots of internal problems to solve: education, health, nutrition, teaching, doctors, nurses, hundreds of things are there. I'm sure all of you are working towards that. Most of the governments are working on that. And you will see real Amrit Kal in the next 25 years for the reason that the population for the next 25 years will be younger population when compared to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I will come back to you. Our CA, DB Mehta, is an economic expert. First of all, let's give him a big round of applause, because in our 200 episodes, maximum number of times he has appeared in our channel, 20 times. Hats off you to sir. And that shows your wisdom. Shateshu jayate shuraha, sahasreshu cha panditaha, vakta dasasahasreshu, data bhavati vanava. So we will get very few people like DB Mehta and CA Ullas Kamath, wise people. Among wise men, you have been economic expert also. Now this, our 2030, our target is $10 trillion GDP. As already mentioned by our CA Gokul Das Pai. It is difficult because we need to go with the pace of 15% GDP rate. And in such case, due to the inflationary situation, even though our GDP rate is nearly 7%, inflation is also nearing 7%. The growth is now at the same pace. There will not be any growth if there is inflation and GDP. In such case, when we can achieve $5 trillion economy and when we can achieve $10 trillion economy with reference to GDP and inflation.
See, let us understand what
before starting the answer, all audience, if you have any questions, you can pose your questions. Last 15 minutes we will keep for question and answer session. Any questions, relevant questions regarding this topic only, please you can ask. And after that, lunch time, after that we will be having resource persons honoring respective episodes, those who have appeared, we are going to moderate. And you can also ask questions to them also. Now, India at 2030, any questions are there, you can keep ready. At the end of our session, 15 minutes, you are free to ask. Sir, over to you.
Let us understand when we talk about GDP or the growth in GDP, what do we mean by that? GDP is measured in two different terminologies. One is called the real GDP. Real GDP is measured at a constant price, which in India is fixed at 2011 and 12. So if 2011 and 12, the base is 100, what are we today? And what we will be in the next year? In that fashion, the real GDP growth is calculated. This year, the real GDP is predicted to grow at around 6.7%. And last year, it grew at around 6.9%. Whereas nominal GDP is at the current prices. Current prices means it includes inflation also. If you look at the nominal GDP, last year it was around 237 lakh crores in Indian currency. This year it is predicted to be 274 lakh crores, which shows a growth of close to 15.5%. Now, if your real GDP is growing at 6.7%, how is it that the nominal GDP is going to grow at 15.5%? The difference accounts for the inflationary pressure. The GDP, when we talk in $1 trillion, is measured at the nominal GDP vis-a-vis the exchange rate. The rupee, if it appreciates, we may have for that particular year a higher GDP in the forex in dollar terms. Rupee, if it depreciates, against the dollar, we may have a lower GDP than expected in dollar terms. We all know in the last 1 year, rupee has depreciated by 12%, whereas the nominal GDP is at 15.5%. So, in dollar terms, we may not grow more than 4% in the current year. So, we have to recognize the elephant in the room, that's the exchange rate. It is very well said and appreciated that India has so many strengths at this point in time. We are in a very sweet spot. We are in a good vicious circle of a good economic cycle. All that is very fine when we talk about the plus sides. Let us look at what are the minuses at the moment. There are a few minuses which are worrying the economists in India and the government as well. The first one is current account deficit. The July to September quarter, current account deficit was 4.4% of our GDP, which is the highest ever. Even in this quarter, it is expected to be above 4%, and the last quarter of this financial year, it would be around 3.5%. Now, current account deficit of 3% for the year on an average is not going to help rupee to stabilize. It may be still weakening as we move forward, which will be putting pressure on the calculation of GDP in dollar terms. What is the second elephant in the room? The second elephant in the room is global recession. If you look at in the past, what is the connection between the growth in the developing, developed economy growth and India's growth? We measure it in a factor called beta. We have a beta of 2.8. If the foreign economy with the developed market grows at 2%, we will grow at around 5.6%. If they grow at 3%, we will grow at around close to 7.5% real GDP. For 2023, the developed economies is predicted to grow at only 1.1%. Would we be in a position to break out of this beta of 2.8 and achieve maybe 6% or 7% growth when the developed economy is slated to grow at only 1.1%? We have a few silver lining in this area, and that's the very, very positive steps taken by the government of India. In which way we can break this nexus is A, Prime Minister Gati Shakti scheme, B, production linked incentive scheme, PLI, C, a huge boost on infra investment, 4, positive reforms in different segments. Still it's slow, but it's at a much faster pace than we have seen in the past. D, slowdown of China is a positive for India. And if you look at all these factors, possibly we may not go down below 5% in 2023. So this will be the first time after a long period we will be breaking this beta of 2.8, and this is thanks to the very positive steps taken by the government of India. Now coming to the prediction of 5 trillion and 10 trillion, I have already mentioned A, rupee will be under pressure. B, GDP growth will be under pressure because of the slowdown in the global growth. C, current account deficit will create further pressure on rupee and the Indian economy. D, we are at a very high fiscal deficit. If you combine the union and the state's deficit, this year it's predicted to be close to 10%, which is a very, very high fiscal deficit. And when you are talking about this kind of high fiscal deficit, to keep inflation under control, to keep your rupee under check from depreciating, to get more than 6% GDP will be a Herculean task and a very stiff challenge. My prediction is 5 trillion in the year 2028, 10 trillion in the year 2033, not before that.
Thank you. You are a little bit disappointed us. We were going in a very faster pace. you have made us to little bit take a pause. Okay, so now we have to take a pause. Before taking pause, our Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt. So you are practicing in Dubai as an investment consultant, correct? What are the transformational shifts which are driving India towards glory in 2030? Definitely we will have glory in 2030, but whether it is 10 trillion glory or lesser than that, that we have to see. But what are the transformational shifts which are driving India?
For a change, most of the time I and Mr. Mehta sit on the same side. For a change today, we'll change the sides. Okay? See, if I am a batsman, he is a bowler, and he is a bowler, and I am going to be a batsman. He said rupee is going to be...
That means both are all-rounders.
Right. So if he says rupee is going to be coming under pressure, I will take the side that the rupee is going to be stable. And I'll put my arguments here. In the short term, whatever Mr. Mehta said is 100% right. It might put pressure on the rupee in the short run. But there are major changes which are brewing in the country which have far-reaching effects into the future. If you have been a careful watcher of the news, NRI community poured in over $100 billion into this country this year, which means to say a source of forex could be the NRI remittances. Why NRIs will remit here? Maybe an FCNR rate is higher. Maybe the banks are allowed to fix a particular rate.
Banking safety is there here.
Yeah, banking. So these things have been taken into account. They poured about $100 billion. Why our forex reserves always come under the pressure? It's because of 2 or 3 primary reasons. One, we are a country which used to import defense equipment. So this is a huge forex outgo. Now you see what is happening in Make in India and the defense reliance, and it is being manufactured in the country. It is not something which will happen in 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year or 2 years. It's a work in progress, but nevertheless, this will bring down our pressure on the forex. You manufacture inside, this will bring down your reliance from outside the world. Technology you can develop inside. And it has a positive spin to it. Instead of being an importer, when you start manufacturing it yourself, you will be able to export it outside. That means what is a forex negative will turn to be a forex positive also. Likewise, you will be able to dictate your soft power or hard power in the world economy or in the geopolitics as well. Today, the West countries will arm twist you because they know that you have a defense requirement and their industry is going to supply to you. They can arm twist you. And they have a vested interest to keep the subcontinent under boiling, just to make sure that the military industrial complex has some business to come from that. So that could change. That could be one game changer. It's a good work in progress. Second is the de-dollarization of the trade. Now the world is depending on dollars to carry out the international trade, the forex. And now the world has seen during this crisis now how risky it is to depend on the dollars. Now we saw between Russia and Ukraine, the Americans, they blocked $550 billion by taking out Russia from the SWIFT system. I don't get into the topic of whether it is right, wrong, nothing. But the question is that is there in my mind. I park my money with somebody else and I am at his mercy to take back this particular money. So the world has found a risk in that if we depend on the US SWIFT system and we park all our money in one single country, then I am at risk. So an alternative mechanism has to be done. Now Reserve Bank of India should be applauded for thinking out of the box, thinking proactively, taking meaningful steps. They started Vostro Nostro account, which is nothing but my account and your account in 2 different countries, Russia, and several countries they are doing it. So you don't need dollars. So you can transact in a rupee and the currency of the other country. Now this is gaining so much provenance. Right now more than 35 countries are interested in this. India has a swap arrangement with Japan. Russian trade is almost, I think, started already. UAE, KSA, which account for a big chunk of the trade, international trade, they have agreed or almost on the verge of agreeing to transact in Indian rupee for their trade. That means you don't need dollars. If you don't need dollars, then the pressure on the rupee will come down. So this is another big thing. And The third thing is why we are dependent on dollars. That is for our import needs. What do we import? We import defense, which I answered. The other import is the crude. Crude is the Achilles tendon of India. We are depending on outside for the crude requirement. Now you see the beauty here now. Two things are simultaneously happening. One, India is trying to develop a rupee trade with Russia and the Middle East or the West Asian countries where you can transact using the rupee. So you get your energy using the rupee. And Russia is prepared to give you oil against the rupee. So that is coming down. And parallelly, now we have heard the industrialist who spoke in the morning about how renewable energy is being pushed here. Solar energy, wind energy, pushed towards the green hydrogen. That means our dependence on crude at percentage time would drop. But quantitatively, it could be still more. It's a growing economy. So these are the major changes which are driving, and I personally stick my neck out and say, probably the days of rupee depreciation, what used to be seen in the last 75 years are behind us. Does it mean to say that the rupee will stick around here as it is? No, it's an ocean. It moves up, it comes down, but it is not going to be a massive devaluation. And the rupee devaluation, apart from being the current account thing which is driving it, is a function of differential of inflation between one country and the other country in the long run. Look at where is the inflation in US today, where is the inflation in India. If you want to know more difference, you just check the FCNR FD rates today versus the Indian rupee rates. The bankers here should be knowing this is the first time in the history the FCNR rates and the Indian rupee rates are almost neighbor. If I'm an NRI, I may not have much to choose between an FCNR and an Indian rupee rate. So these are all the things which are telling in the road ahead, which could be 1, 2, 3 years, no one has to fear that the rupee could be depreciating, and I will even not rule out the fact that rupee might appreciate. That's a possible thing, and only one of us will be proved true, and we remain friends, Mr. Mehta.
Now, friendship is there, but for the time being, it differs to some extent, I think. You want to add 2 points.
Now, I will add a couple of data here. My prediction is in 28, 5 trillion, which is in 23, we are looking at 3.4 trillion. So, we'll be adding 50% in US calculation, in US dollars calculation, in a period of 5 years. For the next 5 years, my calculation is from 28 to 33, doubling from 5 to 10 trillion. This slowdown, what I am looking at in the dollar terms, is for the first 5 years, which will be primarily A, pressure on the rupee, B, high fiscal deficit, C, high CAT. Now, if you look at the dollar index and look at the global currency vis-a-vis Indian rupee, a year back, dollar index was around 103 and rupee was around 75, 76. The dollar index peaked at 115 when rupee touched around 83. Today, in the last 4-5 months, dollar index has again come down from 115 back to 103.5, whereas rupee is still at 83. Rupee has not strengthened in the last 4-5 months, even though the dollar has weakened dramatically. Vis-a-vis dollar, all other currencies which had weakened, like you look at yen or you look at GBP or any other currency, they are all strengthened by 15% thereabout in the last 4-5 months. So whatever weakness came in those currencies has gone away, but rupee has still remained weak. So we will grow in Indian currency, our GDP will grow in Indian currency, but due to the pressure on our exchange rate, the growth in dollar terms will be still muted. That is what the way I am looking at with the figures I have given. Thank you.
CA Gokul Das Pai, you are with us?
Yes.
Now, India versus China, because you are in the World Bank. As per the World Bank source only, shortly we are going to cross China, not in GDP, but in population. So we tell that demographic dividend we are getting. Whether it is advantageous India or not. And how China could develop so much when compared to India. China has developed in times. Can you just brief about it?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So coming to a comparison between India and China, it is not just in GDP terms, but also in many other aspects. China has been way ahead in terms of technological adoption, digital, and many other military. And also we talked about the brain drain initially. So what used to happen was China used to have the similar issue as India when it comes to brain drain, when a lot of Chinese nationals used to settle in US and other countries. But that has substantially come down. Today, a lot of Chinese nationals who study in US, UK universities go back to China, and the percentage of population who study in Chinese universities, who settle in those countries compared to those who move back has come down substantially. One of the reason is the encouragement from the government and the evolution of the startup culture and the venture capital and the evolution of the latest adoption of technological things which China has taken the leaps ahead. Now coming to talking about the population, you asked whether it is good or bad when India overtakes China in terms of population. Because one thing is it depends like what even if you look at the poverty numbers, India in terms of the absolute number, India today still has the largest number of people below the poverty line. Even more than the poorest country in Africa. In terms of percentage, maybe India has reduced the number of poverty. I think it's around less than 20% the overall poverty rate. But in terms of the absolute numbers, the number of people who are below poverty line, which is below $2 as per the World Bank term, is still the highest in India. And when it comes to increasing the population of India, you see the statistics like where which areas the population increases, and it is inadvertently the places where there is more poverty. And if the population increases in those, because we were talking about GDP, 5 trillion, 10 trillion, but as the population increases, there is another measure called GDP per capita, which is still below, quite low in India at 1900, very close to 2000 dollars per annum, which is GDP per capita, which is even below Bangladesh now. Bangladesh recently overtook it's around 2200, 2100 around GDP, which India's per capita GDP is below Bangladesh. And compared to advanced countries like US, which has a GDP per capita of 55,000, and a lot of European Nordic countries have 80, above some countries have about 100,000, and even China as substantially ahead of India in terms of GDP per capita. Now coming to China, why it grew substantially was that because compared to India's growth story, China's growth revolves around manufacturing, whereas India's missed around that manufacturing cycle, and India's growth directly moved from, usually when a country grows from underdeveloped to the developing economy to the advanced economy, it flows through agriculture to manufacturing, which is a job creating sector, whereas India's growth came from agriculture to service directly, compared to China's from agriculture to manufacturing, which is a job creating sector, whereas India, even though now we are pushing a lot on manufacturing through various government schemes, but China took that advantage from the 1980s when they opened up their economy much faster than India when they started. And Chinese economy had one of the fastest growth from 2008 to 2016-17 when they were growing substantially. So one thing is China started much earlier ahead of India, at least 12 to 15 years ahead of India when they started their reforms, whereas India started their major reforms only in if you read through the Indian economic history, India had a very closed economy till 1980s, and it's only in 1984 when Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister when India slowly started opening up the economy. But then again, but in 1991, it slowly started making some major reforms, and then from 2000 there were several other reforms which privatization and opening up the economy. So there has been a lot of timing mismatch and the sectors which we prioritized and missing on the manufacturing growth. So those are some of the factors but taking advantage now, if you see a lot of countries like US are trying to diversify their manufacturing away from China and trying to look for other countries, and this is where India is one of the countries, and you see a lot of investments happening in India. Thank you.
CA Ullas Kamath, you are the Startup Committee Chairman of FICCI, All India, correct? Now,
Co-chair.
Huh?
Co-chair.
Co-chair, okay, whatever it may be, mentor, co-chair, guide, philosopher, friend, whatever. Now, India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, but there is a lot of gap between second and third prize, correct? When first and third, there is still much gap, because there are less players. We are still in third largest ecosystem in the world, and Bangalore, it is the largest ecosystem in India. Startup India, through Startup India initiative, government has taken up a lot of seed funding support, mentoring support, and recently we have seen in Koramangala, Bangalore, State Bank of India has opened one branch for startups only. Then up to 10 crores, in case of CGT MSc up to 2 crores, but in case of startups up to 10 crores funding is there. How these startups can contribute for this 5 trillion or by 2030 $10 trillion economy? Can you just brief?
Startup will be definitely one of the game changers to achieve 5 trillion or 10 trillion or to become the third largest economy by 2032 or 33. And the levers are very simple. We need to reduce our dependence on oil imports. Answer for that is renewable energy, and however expensive it is, Government of India is committed to achieve that. The second one is that we want to focus on manufacturing for India and for the world. And that's where we want to move our manufacturing a little bit towards the global perspective. And that's where PLI has come into the picture. PLI, again, it is mainly to incentivize the exporters or incentivize the import substitutes. So PLI is a game changer. And in between, while China took absolute advantage of manufacturing, and India took on services, thanks to Nanmurthy, Premji, and TCS, people who spent a lot of energy and time in creating a knowledge industry for our youngsters who are coming out from the engineering colleges. And today, that is something other countries cannot replicate because it is built over a period of decades, 2, 3, 4 decades. So we have advantage in knowledge industry, and startup is something to do with the knowledge. And startups in disruptive place makes a lot of difference. It is not that all the startups will do well, probably 4%, maybe 5%, not beyond that. But Government of India is putting their faith in this knowledge, and also they think that the disruption what we are talking about, which is better, cheaper, faster, convenient, using technology, scaling up, and for the world, if they can bring out, that will be a huge difference. Like we have seen now the Flipkarts born in India, giving almost competition to Amazon of the world. We have seen the Ola born in India, but giving competition absolutely to Uber. We have seen Oyo, which is the largest chain of hotels without owning a single room by itself. So we have proved to the world that we can create the world-class startups which can appeal to the whole world. And that's where we feel that the next game changer for the country in terms of creation of jobs, in getting the dollar into the country and also going beyond India. If you see the lens card, which today in US, you can buy lens card, which will be delivered in 3 days' time. And Gokul Das Pai can try that, and it will be delivered to his in Washington, his house, in 3 days' time, because they do have that logistics to help them to deliver the glasses in Washington in 3 days' time, but it is coming out of India. So to that extent, whether it's a pharma, whether it's agri, whether it's agri-tech, we are trying to see what best can be brought in. And in the startup, we are seeing the sunrise industry doing extremely well. When we say sunrise industry, I mean that robotics and the machine learning, artificial intelligence, and medical intervention through the technology, and developing life sciences product. And COVID has taught us that we need to be self-reliant in pharma. So all these things together will help us to achieve. I'm a very practical person. I really do not give too much of importance whether it's 23 or 24 or 25. As long as we're in the right direction, that is good enough for us to reach. We know ourselves that country is far better than what we were 30 years back, 20 years back, 10 years back, 5 years back, and couple of years back, and we are better off than the last month to this month. When I was traveling abroad in 90s, I used to get $50 per day permission from Reserve Bank of India, for which I need to apply 1 week in advance, and they give a letter for $50 per day spent after showing the ticket. So if I'm traveling for 7 days, I used to get $350 and go to the State Bank of India and get that foreign exchange. And today, nobody asks where I go, nobody asks where I swipe the card, and no banks ask me that, why did you spend so much of money? That is the power of Indian credit cards. Today, Amex might have a problem, but State Bank of India card don't have any problem. ICICI Bank credit card do not have any problem. And people will respect that much more than any other cards in the world. So this has come in a long way. Medical tourism. Last year, India has got 7 lakh tourists only for medical. That clearly indicates that 7 lakh people must have felt India is a better place to get surgeries done at an affordable cost. And out of that, almost 40% has come to Karnataka. So people come here, get their heart surgeries, kidney transplant, liver transplant, major surgeries, stay here for a week, 10 days, 15 days, and they go back healthy. And that is growing 20% year on year. To that extent, country is doing extremely well. And the next 25 years will be definitely better. As CA DB Mehta has clearly said, there's a lot to put in order. But we are doing that at the government level, at a regulator level, and it is happening. And the last one is that if we can pay a little more tax by not paying the tax, that will help the government. Because the income tax compliance, even today, is around 3 to 4% of the population. And the freebies to the so-called people who are not getting enough job or not getting enough farm yield, all those subsidies over a period of time, if it can come down, that money can be put back again, getting them a job. So private sector and the startups are the one to look forward to create jobs for the millions. And just to put a number, India needs 1 million jobs every month. And we are already probably 30, 40 million are more or less not in a confirmed job. They're all doing odd jobs, so the government is supporting. So a lot need to be done for human resources, what we have, how do we develop them, and how we can be the human resource development for the world, wherein we can supply here the qualified human resources to the world. We have proved that in nursing, we have proved that in engineering, we have proved that in medical, we are proving that in legal. So a lot can be done, but I'm very optimistic that country will be undoubtedly the number 3 superpower by 2033 or 34 for sure. Thank you.
Okay. Now there is one issue now. Whatever our central government plans, state government, many state government, they differ. So there is a problem of freebies and state debt. Especially to win the votes, state governments are competing in such a way that almost all they are getting free. Even if they don't work, they can sit in home and lead their livelihood. That is the situation in most of these states. In such cases, state debts will also multiply. Is it not a matter of concern, CADB method?
Yeah, before I answer your question, I would like to clarify a few things. CA Gokul Das Pai mentioned that Bangladesh per capita GDP was higher than India's per capita GDP. That was for the last year. This year things have changed dramatically for two reasons. One, Bangladesh Taka, which was 86 last year, is 106 this year. So in terms of dollar, the per capita GDP has collapsed by almost 15%, even after looking into 7% GDP growth in Bangladesh. And if you look at 2023, India's per capita GDP in dollar terms, it will be around $2,450 to $2,480, depending on how we fare in the next 3 months. Whereas Bangladesh will be close to around 2,100 thereabout. So we have taken a big leap far ahead of Bangladesh GDP. There was also a confusion which CSS Naik raised. What is the real income for an individual and what is the nominal GDP for a nation? Now if someone is earning 10,000 last year and his earning is 10,500 this year, his earnings have gone up by 5%. But the cost of the material, if the inflation is 6%, then the cost of the goods and services which he was consuming at 10,000 rupees will become 10,600 rupees. So his real income has actually fallen by 1% in case his income increases by 5% and inflation increases by 6%. Whereas when you calculate nominal GDP, the inflation does not nullify the real growth. The definition of nominal GDP is real growth plus inflation and not minus inflation. I'll give an example. If you are selling one item at 100 rupees last year, this year you are selling two items at 110 rupees. What will be your turnover this year? 220 rupees compared to 100. So your real growth has, your nominal growth has gone up by 120% and not by 100%. So nominal GDP, inflation will always get added to the real GDP. So that confusion many have, and that should be sorted out. Now the question of state freebies. The central government had passed an act called FRBM, Fiscal Responsibility and Balance and Budget Management. States have given this particular FRBM, they have simply thrown that to the winds. For a simple reason, the penalties which the central government imposed under the FRBM on the state is so minuscule that the local politicians would rather want to be in power by declaring more and more freebies and by violating FRBM than to get that little additional grant, little additional contribution from the central government if they follow the FRBM. And that is a very, very negative trend which we have seen of late, followed by different state governments and political parties. So freebies definitely is a challenge when our total fiscal deficit in the current year with the union and the states put together would be crossing 10%. Last year also it was higher than 10%. This year also it will be even higher than the previous year when you combine the two factors. So it's not a positive thing. There has to be more steps taken by the central government in the FRBM to discourage states from declaring more and more freebies. And if we have to become a 5 trillion and a 10 trillion within the given time frame, the freebie culture will delay it. Why do you think it has caught the attention of the Prime Minister and the Union government to such an extent that Prime Minister keeps on referring to this freebies by a word used, revadi? I think it's a Gujarati word, Revadi, for a freebie, and he keeps mentioning that. Because this will derail our GDP even in Indian currency term as well as in US dollars. And in the global arena, if you want to have a say, whether it's your foreign policy, whether it's your trade policy, if you are not number 4, if you are not number 3, you have that much less bargaining strength in the global arena. So freebies, definitely it has to be restrained.
Okay. Dr. Bhatt, now everybody's interest is in interest. Depositor wants more interest. And those who want to borrow money, they want at less interest. So, how this interest rate will pan out in future, in 2025 or by 2030? Can you just throw light on this?
Honestly speaking, the correct answer is I do not know. But we can make wild guesses, we can get the judgment right, and we can learn from history, we can learn from the data which is panning out and the trends which are happening. If India remains under a very high interest rate regime, the growth cannot sustain itself. So for the growth to sustain itself, the interest rates have to come down. And we have seen, at least people of my age group, there are so many of you who are seated here, we have seen in the Indian banking, the bank FD rates were at the rate of about 14%. And I still remember during my schooling days, Canara Bank used to advertise as double your money every 5 years. It is too attractive if somebody says that today. But from 1984 to 1995 or so, we were at that time. And I myself was a businessman in Mangalore. I still remember drawing at the rate of 22% from the bank. It just gives me shivers at the moment. I just can't even imagine that. But from 95 onwards, we started moving towards a lower interest regime, and it brought down the interest almost up to 5.5% or so in the year 2007 or 2008 period of time. Then the new interest rate cycle started, which pushed up the interest rates to 9.5%, approximately 9.5%. And the downward cycle started somewhere in 2014 or 15, and it brought down the interest rate all the way down to 4.5%. Now we are again passing through an upright interest rate cycle. We are almost done with the interest rate up cycle. Maybe depending on what happens to rupee, the dollar interest rates and other things, maybe another 0.5%, 1% up move may be possible, but we are almost at the top end of the interest rate cycle. So which means we are stabilizing again at 7.5, at the most 8% on the FD rates, which means it is not touching the previous peak. So from here onwards, a downward cycle will start. My guess, my prediction, market will not listen to me, nobody listens to me, but this is, don't take it too seriously, take it with a pinch of salt. Within next 5 to 7 years, India will see an interest rate of 3 to 4%. The FD rates I am talking about and commensurate lending rates. This is, 2 to 3% higher. And you see when the borrowing interest rates comes down, that works as a boost to the economy. The interest rate coming down, is it a good news or is it a bad news, depends on who you are. It's a good news if you are a borrower. It's a bad news if you are a saver. It's a bad news if you are a retiree. Can you do something about it? The answer is yes, you can do something about it. But probably that's another day.
Okay. Now you told interest rate is, if it is falling down, it may be bad news for depositor. But if the inflation comes down, the interest rate, even if it falls, now see, even the interest rate is more. Due to the inflation, it is nulled now. So in such cases, Mr. Mehta, you can just add up.
Just a moment.
1 minute, he will add. Let others also give opinion. You can have a
see. Just couple of things to consider with the interest rate. As Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt said, we have peaked in interest. Yes, that looks very possible that we have peaked in interest rate. But how fast we will be able to bring the interest rate down depends on a couple of factors. The first factor is the fiscal deficit. How fast we are able to bring down the fiscal deficit will determine how fast the inflation within our own country comes down. The second factor which you have to look at is the global interest rate. the global interest rate is at a much higher than what it is normally used to. And India needs to, see that the rupee does not depreciate too fast. For that, we need forex. The forex comes through the investment in the bonds, the government bonds especially, by the foreign investors. Now, if in the US itself, if they are getting 4.5% in the US treasury bonds, why would they want to invest in India in the bond at 5 or 6%, giving forex risk of around 3 to 4% annualized? So, if the inflation in the developed world does not come down too fast, the earnings in, say, like US Treasury will be remaining high, which will keep the government on its toes to keep the interest rate highs rather than lower it very fast. So, with these two caveats, I would feel that interest rates will definitely start softening, but it will soften at a slower pace than what we would like to.
When this caveat can be opened?
I think we have to watch till 2024, 2 years.
Okay. So, until then there is a caveat. Okay. Now, CA Gokuldas Pai, you are with us?
Yes.
Very good. Because it is, I think, already good morning time for you, around 2:30. We should appreciate your patience. Very sorry for the delay. Now, geopolitical issues. Now, Russia-Ukraine war, China-Taiwan issue, Israel-Iran issue, and Japan and China issue. Can you just throw light due to that, how it will affect other economies as well as Indian economies in nutshell?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so coming to these crises, each one has its own impact on India. Now coming to the first, we had already discussed it in length, and we also had one earlier episode on Business Tonic about the Russia-Ukraine crisis, which affected multiple economies, especially the negative impact was mostly on Europe and a few other countries which were dependent on Russia and Ukraine for supplies. Especially one is there are several countries in Africa which are mostly food importers, because that is the analysis we did: food importing countries and the food exporting countries, and the countries which were heavily dependent on Ukraine and Russia, which was largest supplier of food products like wheat and edible oil and a few other products were badly impacted, and we had food crisis and also food inflation throughout the country. And then there was energy crisis across the European countries, which are expected to go under recession depending upon how severe the winter is this time, and that will decide the energy needs from Russia for these European countries. Coming to India, as I earlier said, it turned to be some benefit in terms of getting cheaper oil from Russia, and also promoting the rural economy in terms of agriculture. Now coming to Iran, that is a bit, and Israel, it's a very interesting equation because, and also we have Saudi, because recently China signed a comprehensive partnership agreement with Saudi. And last year they also signed it with Iran as well. So Saudi stepped up to keep Iran under control. And interestingly, India had very good relation with Iran as well as with Israel. But just like what India did with Russia, India used to get cheaper oil from Iran until US imposed sanctions and asked India to stop importing, when at one stage it almost came to zero imports from Iran. But India's relationship with Israel has increased in terms of defense and other partnership. Same thing with Saudi as well. So India has to play very strategically, because as per India's policy, they do not take any side. And one of the biggest crises, which is we are talking about the GDP growth, but one of the constraints and the things we have to be skeptical about is China, sorry. Because China has two big threats. One is their potential invasion of Taiwan, which has been the talk, and US has always been saying that it is just a matter of few years when China makes a full-blown attack on Taiwan, and so that will is closely watched by Japan as well as US and India, because Taiwan is one of the major partners for India, because Taiwan is one of the major suppliers of semiconductor, and if you see Taiwan's supply to South Asia, 80% of their trade goes to India, and Taiwan is also investing quite a bit in India. They have made, I don't have the specific numbers, but several partnership to open several investment things in India. So that is also going to affect India. And then India has to be careful about China's own ambitions in the Northeast, where which could blow up the, because we know the cost of war from this Russia-Ukraine. So any full-fledged or even the minor escalations in these East Asian countries will be closely watched. So yeah, thank you.
Over to CA Ullas Kamath now. Small drops of water make a mighty ocean. Together can make mighty ocean. MSMEs, they contribute globally nearly 90% to the GDP. Whereas in India, only 30% of the GDP, it is contributed by MSMEs. How it can be strengthened, MSMEs can be strengthened, and how their contribution to GDP of country can be increased, so that at a faster pace we can reach this target of 5 trillion and $10 trillion economy. Can you just throw light on it?
MSMEs are the backbone of any economy, even in India. Almost upward of 50% GDP comes from MSME industries in the country, and about 80% of the jobs are created by them. And during COVID time, they did manage to pay their employees, and some of them, despite closing the factories, they did pay to the employees. It comes with good heart. Having said that, the efficiency, the productivity, the speed to adopt the technology, the availability of the money for them, they always start the business with the problem, does the business with the problem, and ends the business with the problem. And any MSME enclave we go, it's always it's not so good the conditions are. And borrowing the money, and borrow short term to long term, and there is no adequate capital brought in. So generally the MSMEs are hit by two things. One, their capital, bringing the capital into the business has come down drastically. They have already borrowed enough. They cannot borrow more. They are not able to adapt to the new technology. They are not able to get into the disruption mode of business. They do not want to disrupt their existing business. Family is growing. Next generation is coming in. Requirement of money is high. And at the same time, the big players are consolidating, and big players are one who have the scale, and they'll be able to manage your business in more meaningful way. So you will see lots of small and medium enterprises are selling out themselves, either as a business or as a real estate, and new emerging MSMEs can do wonders to the country. What I mean to say that today's startup is tomorrow's MSME. They will be coming into MSME at some point in time, and the new age business has to happen through MSMEs, which will happen, and existing MSMEs have to reorganize their capital. They need to be getting the capital access as quickly as possible, and they need to have marketing assistance, they need to have the global reach, they need to have the scale, they need to have the unit economics in place, they need efficiency, they need productivity, and they need to have a trained labor. And again, that's a big skill gap what we have in the country. Olden days we used to have ITIs now, most of the states are not able to support them. So there are lots to answer, but having worked with MSME and having seen how MSME can be grown, I'm very optimistic that the generation next in the MSME will adapt to the new challenges and face the challenges, and they will be funded adequately so that they can bring the difference to the economy very positively.
There are many more questions to be covered. Now, because of paucity of time, we will directly go to Q&A session. If any audience, if any questions are there, please ask. Let it be relevant to this topic only. Let us, Dr. G.V. Joshi, he is an economist also, please.
Thank you. Learned resource persons have thrown some light on the possibility of employment generation. In fact, a resource person who is invited by you has spoken from United States also about it in brief. But we don't have a clear picture at all, according to me. Would the learned resource person highlight it? This is such an urgent problem. Employment generation. We can't wait for 2030 at all. No, that is ruled out. Therefore, what should the center do? What should the states do? And for employment generation, ordinary employment generation, what should the local bodies do? Well, center-state financial relationship. Center is particular, states lag behind in their budgetary operation. Therefore, it would be extremely useful to the learned audience here if some specific light is thrown on employment generation, sector-wise employment generation, and the relation between the center and the states.
Excellent question. CA Gokuldas Pai, can you just throw light on this employment generation, how to quickly generate employment in India?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very good question. And just to, before I answer, let me go back to our history in 2004, because we are talking a lot about growth, and there is no doubt that India is growing, and it is becoming one of the top 3 powers very soon, overtaking Germany and Japan. And but in one of the lot of economists are saying that this is jobless growth. I mean, the growth is there, but there are no jobs. So what that means essentially is the growth is only in the top percentile is benefiting from this. So that's what it's implied. So just to give an example, what happened in 2004, we had 3 political leaders who did very good for their respective. One was Chandrababu Naidu, who was the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh. One was S.M. Krishna, who was the Chief Minister of Karnataka. And then the third was our Vajpayee, who was the Prime Minister of India. All 3 did an excellent job and were expected to win the election, because Andhra Pradesh was growing phenomenally under Naidu. Karnataka became like Singapore under S.M. Krishna, and Vajpayee, we were saying India shining. But all 3 lost the elections. Why? Because probably the common consensus was that the growth experience everybody did not experience the fruits of that growth. So I think that is a lesson we have to learn from our history, where when our GDP grows, and that should benefit all the segment of the population. And one of the target is that majority of the Indian population should come to the middle class. And that can happen only by generating employment. So now how do you create employment at a wider scale? Because it should not be like small jobs where you just keep adding, and then should not be like a gig economy where we have people doing odd jobs and then count it, but really stable employment. So as I said earlier, I gave an example of Bangladesh, Vietnam, and those countries where garment industry is one thing which has they have really invested and promoted huge factories. And so today we see Bangladesh, it has, even though one more statistics is some of these countries like Bangladesh, and their tax to GDP ratio is only 10%, 9%, but their economy has grown substantially in last few years. That was because, again, the kind of jobs generated to a wider population, which only manufacturing sector can provide. So that is something India should look at, promoting industries and manufacturing, and then non-agricultural jobs in the rural areas and try to upskill the population and try to get investment, and then these factories will generate a lot of jobs, and then startups is one thing, but I think unless you have these job generating industries, it will not, the benefit of growth will not flow to other segments. But I will leave it to other panelists who will have better views on how we can operationalize job generation in India. Thank you.
CADB Mehta, how to quickly generate jobs?
See,
Can you quickly brief?
I'll give you 2-3 parameters here. Subsidy of freebies is inversely related to employment generation, point 1. So the more we do subsidy, the more we give freebies, employment will not be generated. The second direct correlation is education and skilling are directly related to employment generation. This government has done a lot of good work in skilling. Education still is going very slow, it's work in progress. The third aspect of employment generation is, if you have public capital which is generated, it does not generate, it does not have that high velocity of employment generation. The private capital, when it gets generated, the velocity is very high. The multiplier effect of private capital generation is almost twice than that of the government investment, and therefore the employment generation is also much faster. You must have noticed in the last few years, it is the public investment which is driving our GDP. You know, you look at PM Gati Shakti scheme, or you look at, you know, investments in infrastructure, or whatever you call it. It is more driven by the public sector rather than the private capital generation. Looks like the next decade, there will be a lot of private generation of capital, a lot of private investments in various commercial activities, industrial activities, which will bring more positive employment. The negative side of the next couple of years will be tech slowdown. So the very skilled tech workers who are employed in all these IT industries will see some kind of slowdown. We must be already hearing a lot of layoffs from the tech companies. 10,000, 20,000 people are laid off in each of these companies. That's a big worry for the next 2-3 years. As the global recession grips the developed economy, would we have slowdown in the tech employment? That's a worry.
Sachidanand is my name, and I am the retired bank executive. Congratulations and compliments for all the resource persons and anchor. Good afternoon to all the audience. ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಒಂದು ನುರಿತ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ತಜ್ಞರಾದರೂ ಕೂಡ, ಅಥವಾ ಪ್ರಖ್ಯಾತ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ತಜ್ಞರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಆರ್ಥಿಕತೆಗೆ ಭವಿಷ್ಯ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ನಿತ್ಯ ಸತ್ಯ. I am not speaking negatively or controversially, but at the same time,
ಕೇವಲ ಸಚ್ಚಿದಾನಂದ ಮಾತ್ರ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಕೊಡಬಹುದಲ್ವಾ?
No, the thing is that, okay, the given circumstances as it is, the dollar rate at the rate of 12% increase, and the current account deficit is there, fiscal deficit is there, inflation is there, and already my friend has told that unemployment. Under this situation, it has been predicted that GDP has been increased. When the GDP has been increased, the employment generation would have been increased, and the number and the percentage of employment should have been increased. For the last 16 months, the employment has been gone down. It may be a question to either maybe a Kamath, Mehta or Pai. And ಈ ಜಾಗತಿಕ ಆರ್ಥಿಕತೆಯ ಕರಿನೆರಳು ಉಂಟಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ನಮ್ಮ ರಫ್ತಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ತುಂಬ ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಓವರ್ಕಮ್ ಆಗಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ಈ ಸಂದಿಗ್ಧ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಿಂದ ನಾವು ಹೊರಗೆ ಬರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ವಾಟ್ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಫರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜೀಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಟೇಕ್, ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಥಿಂಗ್. What was the economy in 2019, 20, 21, 22, and the next year we cannot predict.
Let all the people question be brief. Then
No,
only we can answer.
I want it to be very concise. In 1 minute ಗಿಂತ 1 second ಕೂಡ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. 1 ನಿಮಿಷಕ್ಕಿಂತ 1 second ಕೂಡ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. As far as MSME is concerned, almost I want it to be brief. They are in the verge of coming out from their most difficult times. And what best the most pathetic thing is that ಈಗ ಜಾಗತಿಕವಾಗಿ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಹಿಂಜರಿತದ ಎಲ್ಲ ದೇಶಗಳು ಕಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಾಗ ಈ ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶ ಈ ಸಂದಿಗ್ಧ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಿಂದ ಹೇಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದು ಅನ್ನೋಂಥದ್ದು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಸಾರಿ, ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಮೆನಿ ಮೋರ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ಪೀಕ್, ಬಟ್ ಐ ವಾಂಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಇಟ್ ಹಿಯರ್.
During lunch time.
Thank you very much. No, yes, after that I may get sleep.
Okay. Now our CA Ullas Kamath. In spite of Jagatika, he tells that all, in your question itself answer is there. ಜಾಗತಿಕ ಕರಿನೆರಳು ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂದಿಗ್ಧ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಂದೊಡ್ಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಜಾಗತಿಕ ಎಲ್ಲ GDP ನೆಗೆಟಿವ್ ಇರುವಾಗ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಈಸ್ ಪೋಸಿಂಗ್ ದ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ GDP. ಇನ್ಫ್ಲೇಷನ್ ಅಕ್ರಾಸ್ ದ ಗ್ಲೋಬ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಲಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್, ಬಟ್ inflation in India is under control. In such situation, but still there is a matter of concern is there because of geopolitical issues, oil issues, various other issues. I think various measures have been taken, and how those measures will give results. Can you just talk?
Let me be very clear that there will be enough pain will be there in the next 3 to 8 years, maybe 10 years, before we see the gain in the employment. We can avoid that question, but avoiding will not be able to solve that question. Our graduates are not employable. That's all. You go to any college today and ask them what is GDP, they will not be able to answer. You ask them how to calculate the GDP, they will not be able to answer. They ask them what is the HRA, they will not be able to know what is the HRA is also. But they are all qualified. Today, education has become an industry, unfortunately, and they are growing. Education is not to impart the knowledge. Education has become a P&L and balance sheet. And that is the sad part. The new education policy which is coming in, try to fix as much as possible, but it is we who should decide, should I put 8 lakhs rupees behind an MBA or should I start a small industry at 8 lakhs rupees? And the people are foolish enough to put 8 lakhs rupees on an MBA course and stand in the queue for joblessness rather than putting that 8 lakhs rupees in a job market. Second, skill do not have any value in the technology market. Today, decisions are taken by the machine, not by the people. Because machine do not ask for coffee, tea, overtime, and the leave and the CTC, nothing. It's one-time investment. We are growing, everybody are growing. Why employment is not growing is Sachidananda's question. Is that to grow, you don't need people. You need the process, you need the machinery. Today you buy your own ticket to travel and take your own boarding pass to get into your flight. 4 jobs are lost because of that. There is no travel agent. There is no person who takes the boarding pass for you. You only go and sit, and tomorrow they'll ask you to carry your own food also if it is required. To that extent, technology has taken over most of the jobs. If you see some of the automobile industry, they have 4 jobs, 5 jobs in the floor, which used to be 400, 500 per floor. Today they have 4 or 5 because everything is mechanized. Coming to the clear path that we need to see how do we grow manufacturing to create more jobs. For that, you need to be competitive globally, not at a national level. For that, we are doing a lot from the government of India, state government, chambers, commerce, everyone. The second one, explore the unexplored. That is the tourism in India. Tourism creates lots of jobs, and machine cannot do tourism. Machine cannot do tourism. But for that, we need the infrastructure. Today, when you go to Dharmasthala, you stand in queue for 3 hours. You go to Subramanya, you stand in queue for 3 hours. You go to Udupi, you stand in the queue for 3 hours. Now people will lose patience.
Tirupati, 3
Next
days.
day you get.
3
Next
days.
day you get. I'm saying that that means to say that there is a demand, there are people, and if they come for one temple darshan, they will be spending thousands of rupees in the transport and the hotel and the guide and the car and lot of things. So we need to see the one is the tourism, the second is undoubtedly agriculture, third one is an organic food supply to the whole world, which we can do, and we also see the alternative medicines, whether it is Unani, whether it is Ayurveda, whether it is the homeopath, whether it is the wellness. So we need to explore that where machines cannot take the job overnight. And machine will not be able to give you the wellness. It is only the diagnostic can be done. Today, if you go to a diagnostic center, one machine will give you 1,000 parameters in taking one blood sample. It never used to be like that. In the past, if you want 10 parameters, there used to be 10 people behind that to check in the microscope. Today, there is not there. So everywhere it is the technology, sir. And unfortunately, the technology is developed by human beings only. So the human beings, they will sell a machine, this will replace 100 jobs, this replace 1,000 jobs. The return on investment on this is 3.5 years. The IRR for this investment is 4.5 years. So they'll make the companies to buy into the machine so that the job losses. Finally, government cannot create any more jobs. And government should not create any more jobs. But the way how the government recruiting today in central government, had interaction with a few of the smartest people who works in Invest India Forum. They are all from the Ivy League schools. They are all from a highly educated background. And you can see the quality is there at the highest level. So submission for the government from all of us from the Chambers of Commerce is that get the skill right, get the education right, get the industry right, and focus on one district, one product, and depend on small and medium enterprises, support them better, give them the subsidy based on the jobs what they create, not based on the investment what they bring in, and empower the women, give women more jobs, preference you give it to them. If you create a job for a woman, the family will survive. If you create a job for a man, he will survive for sure. Rest I don't know. So to that extent, we need to do a bit of structural changes, what is required in the way how you create the job. And the people who are going to Middle East in the past, they are coming back with the money. It's of no use here, but they come back with the money. And I've seen so many people are driving their own cars as a taxi who have come from Middle East because there's no job there. There's no more job in Singapore and Malaysia, wherein the East Coast people used to go there. So it is not only we are not going out, we are also having more of people coming back, and all they want is just a job. And that is difficult to create. So to that extent, a lot to be done, but we are doing it, sir, from the government, states, center, and all the chambers. We are doing our best to create the job. But when you really interview a candidate coming out of this college, we will see that what is that he can do in his life. Because they just want increment, 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 and nothing else. What do? They want us to train them and also give them the increment also. That humility is not there in the job seekers. There's a demand that I paid you this fees and get me the job. This is what they ask the college. They will not say that you are not giving me the knowledge. They said you sold that campus recruitment is 98%. So where is the campus recruitment? And that's what they demand. And today's students are more demanding than what we were in our days, sir.
Okay. Excellent rendition by our CA Ullas Kamath. See, our banking ecosystem, MSME ecosystem, it is best in the globe. We can make use of all these ecosystem and create more and more jobs for themselves and for others also.
Hello. Hello. This I am Damodar Padvidri. My question is to Ullas Kamath. This is with regard to Sunrise Industries, what he has mentioned few minutes back. Apart from medical tourism and whatever jobs he was mentioning, I want a brief idea on jobs in unorganized sectors. Not jobs, but as entrepreneurial ideas. I request him to provide some ideas briefly for this audience, because we have come here only for hearing more ideas, not economic statistics. We are not interested in statistics. What actually we require, what will benefit our homes, that we require.
The cottage industries will come back. The small self-employment groups will come back. Support will be there from the government. And you can think of going back to organic in a major way. It is the attraction of the whole world. And there is also a concept called farm to the fork, the tracking of the food from the farm to the fork. All these things, new age things, based on the nature, based on which helps the climate change. And if you are going back to your farm, there is somebody to buy that, and the technology will help you there. For example, there is a statistics that if the food wastage which is happening in this world can be fed to the 1/3 of the hungry in the world, so that has to be bridged. And today's NGOs, today's social enterprises have got a good amount of respect than it was in the past. I'm talking about the social enterprises. The retired people, there many are sitting here, they can bring in a lot of synergy between the small enterprises, bring them in one platform, and you say that, okay, these 10 households or these 10 self-employed group are stitching or weaving, say, Udupi saris. I don't think still it is there. By my grandmother's time, the Udupi silk saree used to be one of the most sought after, whereas the Kanchivaram has got its brand, but Udupi, we don't know where it exists. But if we can bring back that Udupi's silk sarees
but we will get in Jayalakshmi Udupi, all the
so
sarees.
if you are able to get back, then lot can be done. Lot can be done. And again, the food and the food supplements. So the jobs can be created through the self-help group with or without subsidy by the state or the central government, but with the funding of the banks, you can always reorganize and go for where others have not gone. And I would definitely recommend you to get into a dairy farming. I'm recommending you to go for the milk and milk derivatives, and I recommend you to go for old age homes. Today people have the money, but they don't have the place to send their parents. So they need to have a better place, and India is aging faster after 2050. So you need to be extremely fast in having adequate, high quality old age homes. We don't have child care centers here. And in the past, we used to depend on our parents as a child care, but that's not available any longer. So you need to be very careful in having a world-class child care center where you can create the job. And for that, again, you need to have that ecosystem to support with. And alternative medicines is, again, wellness is once again. And the biggest game changer, again, here could be yoga. Because yoga has proved beyond doubts anywhere in the world that India is the mother of yoga in all respect. That's where you don't need any technology. Learn for 2-3 years, get some mastery on that, and teach everyone your health, their health, everybody's health will be better. And that can be a good industry, which is already in Mysore as the capital of yoga. And estimated 5 lakh people come every year and get trained in Mysore and they go. So that is the way we need to bring out our own ethnic advantage, what we have. Probably we should work on that.
Mr. Rajesh Rao.
I am confident that India is going to become the economic powerhouse of the 21st century for the following reasons. We can also become, our Indian rupee can also become the 5th prime currency, global prime currency also by 2030 for the following reasons again. One is de-dollarization, the FTA with 35 countries, and rupee becoming the international currency, and the rupee trade being conducted in major economies, and exports are being done, PLI is there, Atmanirbhar is there, all positive signs are there for India to become a powerhouse plus a global currency, Indian rupee. Along with that, the e-rupee that has been introduced. Do you agree with me?
Indian rupee becoming a global currency is a work in progress. It is not something which will happen in 1 or 2 years. As long as there are people who are prepared to trade with you using the Indian rupee, it means that your rupee is internationalized. But there is a long way before it is in the basket of currencies like a GBP or dollars. There is a long time to go to that level.
Mr. Pai, Gokul Das Pai. What is your opinion regarding de-dollarization?
Yeah, so the common consensus is de-dollarization will happen, but very slowly. It is not that it's an overnight process, because right now there is no alternative, because dollar is, at one time it used to be like 79% of the global traded volume. Now it's fallen down 59%, and it will fall down in coming years. There is no doubt about that, because the current Russia-Ukraine crisis, which we discussed earlier in the panel, when the countries have realized the risk of holding the currencies in dollars and reserves in dollars, and so countries are looking for alternative mechanisms, and India has already started rupee trading mechanism, and 35 countries have already expressed interest, especially right now the countries which have reserve issues and dollar issues, and countries which are facing sanctions from US are the ones who are more likely to come to this. Same thing, one thing China also is doing is one of the things during their partnership with Saudi and other countries is trade in their respective currencies, and same thing India is doing, and this is something will slowly develop over the period of time. But this is not something which will happen in next 1, 2, 3 years, but surely medium to long term, this is because alternative currencies are also slowly getting traction. Every country is piloting on digital e-rupee, and India is also piloting central bank digital currency. The pilot has already begun in 2022 at both wholesale and retail level. At wholesale level, the digital rupee is being piloted in the secondary market to settle government securities, and in the retail segment also the digital rupee central bank digital currency is being tested with partnership with around 5 banks with several few retail transactions, and as this pilot grows, this will be expanded to include more until it is being implemented, rolled out live. But as far as de-dollarization is concerned, that is inevitable to happen. I think since we are talking 2030, we should see where it will be, but alternative payment mechanisms will substantially pick up in next 5 to 8 years is my prediction. Thank you.
Our CBO of Karnataka Bank, Gokul Das Pai, can you just add?
Yeah, I am GDP from Karnataka Bank, Gokul Das Pai. I really thank all the panelists for their good insight about the countries for 2030. And with the special reference to, hats off to Mr. Ullas Kamath. When the question of employment generation came, lot of issues he has told, and with a special reference to agriculture. More than 50% of the population in India is dependent on agriculture. It's giving a lot of employment. I still feel there is a lot of opportunities for employment generation. You take it post-harvest technology, food preservation, supply chain, and whatnot. Maybe, as on date, maybe around 15 to 20% of what is being explored now. I think if we really focus on agriculture, which is the backbone for our country, and it is giving employment generation and food, I think I feel agriculture will have a future till this Mother Earth is there. That's all, that's my view.
Anything to add in agriculture? Dr. Bhatt.
Now, one question to add on the agriculture. We recently see a lot of agriculturists moving from agriculture to industrialization. We see a lot of crisis in agricultural labor as a big problem for every agriculturist. A person who has about 2 acres, 10 acres, 15 acres are now facing a big problem in getting the agriculture labor. So what is your opinion as to how we can convert this industrial labor? The normal people are converting from agricultural labor to industrial labor. We are finding very difficult for getting the people for agriculture labor. And youngsters or middle-aged people, they are selling their agriculture land and moving out. The cities, the people who are in cities, they are just buying the land with the hope of doing agriculture, but they could not do anything. They are in city with a different employment. They can't come back and do the agriculture. How do you see in next 10 years? As far as my view is concerned, in next 10 years, the agricultural income will drastically reduce in India.
No, agricultural income will triple in the next 10 years. Don't be worried about it. It will triple. Average holding in India by agriculture is less than 2 acres. Average holding of agriculture land in India is less than 2 acres, and they don't have the approach to the road. They need to cross somebody else's property to take the tractor in. Second, their children are not interested because 2 acres cannot feed more than 2 people. So if they have 3 children, they know that they need to go out. Globally, it is agriculture, from there to industry, from there to the technology, right? So that is the route which you take. As of now, India's GDP ratio is about 15%, but about 50% people are depending on agriculture, wherein the 15% can remain at 15%, but the 50% has to come down to 30%, 25%. So the route which you are taking is right. Agriculture is doing an agriculture, and an industrial is doing an agriculture. There is a chalk and cheese difference. This person depends on the God, and looking at the cloud, he takes the decision. An industrialist take, depending on all the data available from the satellite, he knows exactly when to seed and how many days it takes, and he don't have to go out and ask Panchayat that what should I do, when should I do. So the technology what is available and the information is what is available. The big players will come in agriculture. When they buy out all these 2 acres together, 1,000 people, they make 2,000 acres, and they get the scale, they get the quality, and they will be able to rotate the money faster, and the market is there. Today, the agriculture produce wastage is 40%. And tomato in Bangalore, good days it's 2 rupees a kilo, bad day it is 200 rupees a kilo. Why? Farmer cannot manage this? No. Only a businessman can manage this by putting this when it's 2 rupees, put in a cold storage, sell it when it is 50 rupees, you make tons of money. This will happen. So the governments are working very clearly. Now about 35 kilometers per day roads have been built, world-class roads have been built today. That you are seeing now. Now every 100 kilometers you have warehousing facility on public-private partnership happening between the central government, state government, and the private employer, private entrepreneur. The rule there is use and pay, not pay and use. That is, you have the agricultural produce, keep it for 1 week, pay for 1 week, only to the space what you do, and the buyer will buy from there. And this every 100 kilometers, if you have the cold storage, you have the logistics park, you have the truck transiting facility, you have the e-charging facility, that becomes a good neighborhood for many people to create jobs there every 100 kilometers. So from there, like, can you tell me how many number of kilometers of roads are there in Bangalore, in Karnataka? It is 91,000 kilometers of road is there in Karnataka.
But how many gundis that public TV they have counted?
Sir, we all lived. We give more complaints, and if we decide in our own 13th cross or your own 12th cross, our kids can fill up that gundi. No, we make more gundis playing cricket there. And if somebody is making the gundi, you should be able to catch him and give the police station because the public property. No, we only complain. Let us be nationalist. First, let us have the respect for the road for which we have paid the taxes. And nothing will happen without your knowledge. If somebody is cutting the road, is in front of your house, ask him the permission. If not, call the police. No. We'll also do that some other time. No. So to that extent, we should stop complaining to the public, complain to the government, and do your job. In India, we are different. When you go outside India, we are different. So we need to be behaving the same way how we behave elsewhere in the country, right? Elsewhere when you go to the world. Here we litter, there we don't litter. So to that extent, coming here, agriculture produce, give us the quality, you have a global market for that. And today's agriculture institutes, what we have in India, are the finest in the world. Recognize them. Indian Research Institute is one of the finest in the world because the data what they have for the last 60, 70 years. Fisheries Institute, what you have in Bangalore, is one of the finest in the world. But we have 320 kilometers of a coastline, which we don't know how to manage that. That is the disconnect what we have. Not that government do not know about it. We are working on that. Government is working on that. And I'm certain we will become the net exporter of agriculture produce for the whole world in the next 5 years, and government is very clear on that.
Okay.
I'll add just two more
Yes,
points.
one second.
One is bring the farm laws back. It was a very good initiative by the government when the farm laws were announced, but for political reason and various other reasons, the farm laws had to be withdrawn. The only way to reform is by bringing
Punjab has already done by one by half. Now they can introduce farm law.
So that's one point. The second point to bring in agriculture reforms is to cut off all these subsidies. You know how much money we are spending in farm subsidies? Just the fertilizer subsidy this year will be more than 1 lakh crores. The farmer's subsidy, which the government gives some 6,000 rupees, 72,000 crores. You know, if you add all the subsidies, we are spending more than 5 lakh crores on subsidies. Why should someone work then? You want workers? Don't give them freebies. Don't give them free lunch. They'll come and work. You give them a free lunch, they will not work. As simple as that.
Mr. Mehta, I'll just add 2 points here from my experience. I'm a veterinary doctor by profession who started in this line and who has seen what exactly has happened in this industry.
Ex Nandini.
Yes, I worked with Amul, the Nandini version here. I started here in '86. Dakshina Kannada district, before I say, I'll say corporatization of agriculture or semi-corporatization, or you say contract farming is inevitable if it has to come up, and it will come up. And there is success stories here. When I came here in 1986, the Department of Animal Husbandry has written off this district, stating that this is unfit for milk production. It has written it off. You know how much it was procuring? 10,000 liters of milk per day in the entire undivided Udupi and Dakshina Kannada put together. Then I was here, I had full conviction of that. We started the artificial insemination program, and I left the DK Milk Union in the year '92. And when the Mangalore Milk Union was procuring 10,000 liters, before I came here, I was working in Bangalore Kolar Milk Union, and collectively Kolar plus Bangalore was procuring 1 lakh litre per day. The cooperative movement today has made Dakshina Kannada produce 4 lakh litres per day. Kolar and Bangalore Milk Unions are separated, and each is procuring 15 lakh litres per day. So this is what the change will happen. This is in dairy sector. What happened in the poultry sector? It was so much of a loss-making industry, then the corporatization came in, the aggregator models came in. The company will give the seed material, the chicks, the feed, and it will give the know-how. The farmer is required only to provide the shelter and the procurement. Look at where we have reached. Today we are number 1 in the world in milk production. Number 1. Look, the chicken prices haven't greatly increased compared to inflation pricing in the last 30 years. But how much our income has gone up and how much money it has moved to the villages. We had made a calculation. If a milk society procures just 100 liters per day in a village, its turnover was somewhere close to coming to 1 crore of rupees. So it's like a mini corporate. So the agriculture has a great future, and I was listening to one of the videos by Nitin Gadkari where he says a farmer will be replaced as a food producer to an energy producer with ethanol and so many changes that they are working on.
It is our MD MS Mahabaleshwar, he has already told. Only one sector which has got culture, that is agriculture. Okay. Now, Ram Rao, Question Bank Ram Rao, or our Mangalore Productivity Council President. Last question from your side. Okay.
So, thank you, sir. At the outset, I thank Sri S.S. Naik for praising me in the morning. Due to my health condition, I could not attend at 9:15 a.m. itself.
Our business tonic has improved your health.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Business tonic is in my blood because I am ex-Karnataka Bank staff. Now, my questions are, petrol and diesel and cooking gas prices is increasing. Russia-Ukraine war is still continuing. Economic condition in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Ceylon is going worse from bad. Pakistan, Ceylon and Nepal coming closer to China. So at any time Pakistan, India-China war may take place. And inside India, floods condition, climatic condition playing havoc, terrorist activities are in the increase, corona may come at any time, number of income tax, GST and other tax offenders are on the increase of population, corruption is on the increase, NPA in banks, frauds in banks are causing problems, lot of internal problems like road accidents, strike by agriculturists, employees of various banks and companies. Anyhow, I am very optimistic. I am not an expert. As a common man, I am asking these questions. It is said that world suffers not because of violence of bad people, but because of silence of good people. Sirs, what is your suggestions to ourselves and to the what is the role of institutions like Chamber of Commerce and other institutions can do? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. ರಾಮರಾಯರೇ, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನದು ಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. Petroleum price already we are buying from Russia at cheaper rates, and petroleum prices are coming down. EV push has been, we are making more and more investment for EV push. Definitely that will get moderated. Geopolitical already spoken by our CA Gokuldas Pai. Climate change and other things has been spoken by our BM Farooq. Now corona is shortly coming, our Ram Rao told. When it will be coming, Chandrakant Bhatt? Corona. ರಾಮರಾಯರೇ, ನೀವು ಇದು ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ ಡೋಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ ಡೋಸ್? ಕೊರೋನಾ ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಂದರೆ ಜ್ವರ ಮಾತ್ರ ಬರೋದು, ಏನು ಹೆದರಬೇಡಿ, ಏನಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನು ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಬೇಡಿ. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಡೈಲಿ ನೀವು ಪತ್ರಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀರಿ 000 ಉಂಟು ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಕನ್ನಡ ಉಡುಪಿ. ಓಕೆ, ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್. GST and income tax, our sum up will be done by Mehta regarding taxation. Corruption, as long as people are ready to give money, people are there to take money. So give stopping money to people, by any bureaucrats, automatically corruption will stop. Then NPA, government has taken lot of steps. Reserve Bank of India has also taken lot of steps. Now IBC code has been there. Now securitization is there. Then quality of giving loans also, there is a check and balance. Now Chanda Kochar also, she was behind the bar, you have seen. Now such things cannot repeat now. Now MPS have been already recovered, or it has been written off. Now NPA percentage is coming down. You can, Ram Raire, you are a shareholder of Karnataka Bank. There will be good news for you this year. In spite of these all odds, 411 crores profit has been done by Karnataka Bank. If it is NPA increase, how Karnataka Bank can do in half yearly 411 crore profit? So nothing to worry about it. Sorry? 525 crores. Okay, after tax I think I told. Okay. Now let us brief sum up today with the one by one guest. Gokuldas Pai, please sum up. Mr. Pai? Gokuldas Pai? He has already logged out. Okay. Our Mehta regarding the tax, GST and income tax. And sum up.
The good news about the taxation is the percentage of tax collected to GDP has improved over the last 3-4 years, and it's come to 12% possibly this year, which is the highest ever percentage of tax to GDP, despite reduction in corporate taxes, despite reduction in GST taxes vis-a-vis the earlier system of multiple taxes. Despite all that, the GDP, the tax to GDP ratio has improved. That's one very, very good news for our country. And to sum up, as to 5 trillion and 10 trillion, we are on the right path. We have multiple challenges. Government is working very hard to overcome these challenges. It's not that the government is not seized of these difficulties and challenges ahead of us. Maybe the first couple of years, like 2023 and 2024, will be a bit of a trouble. Post that, things will even out. As I said earlier, 5 trillion by 28, 10 trillion by 33. Thank you.
CA Ullas Kamath.
Be optimistic, everything will be fine, and please have breakfast and lunch on time. Rest of things will fall in place automatically. Take care of your health, and anything which you want to plan, please plan for your younger generation. Most of you are already in the sunset clause, so don't have to worry. You need to only about your health, and you need to take care of your health and go for a walk every day, 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening, and keep talking about the GDP. It does not affect you positively also, negatively also. Please take care of your children, take care of your grandchildren, and talk to them about India growth story. If at all, if it happens not because of you, because of your children and the grandchildren. And keep that back of your mind.
Like our fathers and grandmother used to talk about story of Mahabharata, Ramayana and all. Let us talk about India's 2030 story to our children and grandchildren. Chandrakant, but last sum up.
I'm an eternal optimist. I look forward to a day where Business Tonic discusses the Indian economy not in $1 trillion, but in trillion rupees. Let's replace dollar with the rupee. And it will happen during our lifetime. I'm absolutely hopeful about it. And let's commit ourselves for the next generation. Let's not pollute the environment. Let us leave it in a much cleaner way than we received from our parents. Let's take a pledge for that.
Okay. So, my sum up, India's definitely growth story we have to believe. We have to dream big, then we should keep the goal. When goal is fixed, we should plan for that. One plan is there, we should be in action. Definitely there will be result. If the result is good, if you have already achieved the goal, revise the goal. If you have not achieved, then try to work again and again until you reach the goal. With this panel discussion, I think we are going to close now, and now it is time to honor our guests.
Thank you once again to the entire team of the panelists. It was really a detailed session. We spoke about a lot of things as employment, freebies, and untapped opportunities in India, especially how to create employment. So now I request Sri Lilaksha Karkera sir to felicitate and thank CA DB Mehta, our panelists for today, for being the resource person and giving us a lot of insights on PLIs, or be it startups, the GDPs, etc. Thank you, sir. It was indeed a pleasure to have you with us. I also thank CA K. Ullas Kamath, sir, CA Gokul Das Pai, and Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt for giving us a lot of insights and a lot of takeaways to our home today. So just like how we have to keep our body healthy, this session has kept our mind healthy by giving a lot of food for thought, and our analysis anymore is required. Being optimistic is required to continue and set out a path to make India self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. Thank you to the panelists and our moderator, C.A.S.S. Naik, for conducting this session wonderfully. We are going ahead now to honor and felicitate all the resource persons from 151st to 200th episode. The man behind this brainchild, Business Tonic, was a dream of C.A.S.S. Naik, which has come true and is walking step by step, 200th, 300th, and many more episodes to come with wonderful topics which are going to give us a lot of takeaways in every episode. Thank you once again to this wonderful team, to the elite resource persons of today, the panelists for today, for giving us such beautiful insights.